in plants can be harmful or fatal if swallowed.
Hello and welcome to Shiitake Thoughts, an episode where mushroom enthusiast Michael File, that's me, spews out some random thoughts about growing shiitake mushrooms on logs after 10 years of growing experience. So how did I get interested in growing shiitake mushrooms on logs? Well, about 10 or 12 years ago on the TV, on the National Geographic Channel, there was a show called Live Free or Die that highlighted the lifestyles of various people living off the grid. One of the featured parties was a young couple, Tony and Amelia, who lived a hardscrabble existence on the hillside out in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
My name's Tony, and I am an intergalactic space wizard.
The best way to learn how to garden is to start gardening.
Miso shiitake cat stir fry.
Oh, it's good.
And one of the episodes featured them creating some shiitake logs. They ate the mushrooms and then they would trade them and use them to barter for animals and other foods and building materials and stuff. So that got me thinking. I like mushrooms, I like horticulture, I like putting things together. I wanted to create my own logs. So I got online, went on eBay, ordered some plug spawn of a bunch of different kinds of mushrooms, oysters and shiitakes, and I don't even remember all of them. And they were from all over the world, Eastern Europe and other places. Some of them were probably a scam. I didn't see almost any mycelium on some of the plug spawn. I had no idea what I was doing. I pretty much did everything wrong, but the shiitake logs did take. And eventually they spread their spores and colonized the other logs that did not take. So that's my first thought here. If you have existing shiitake logs and you want to create some more, you might just want to cut some fresh logs and place them beneath your existing logs, and they will likely become inoculated just thanks to gravity and contact with your existing logs, this being a shortcut to inoculation, saving you the time and trouble and money of going through the inoculation process. So that's definitely something I'm going to experiment with this winter, try to reproduce those results from 10 years ago. All right, on to the next thought. Maybe you could skip the cold water bath if you're thinking about force fruiting your shiitake logs. Typically, if you wanted to force fruit your logs, you would soak them in a cold water bath of unchlorinated water for like 12 to 24 hours, and then they should fruit in a week or two after that. But in my experience, you might not need to do that at all. You might just need to bang your logs around. Knock them around, knock them against each other, hit them with a mallet. There is a phenomenon where you knock the logs and wakes up the mycelium and stimulates it to fruit. This has been a folk practice in the cradle of shiitake cultivation in Japan for hundreds of years, knocking on the logs with a mallet, and this actually stimulates the fruiting of the mushrooms. It's reproducing a natural disturbance in the wild, such as a limb falling or thunder and lightning, or an animal disturbing the log, stimulating it to fruit. It actually is kind of like an alarm inside in the mycelium. It's hard to imagine that there's actually a living, breathing organism inside these logs, but yeah, they are very much alive, and they can be stimulated to fruit by a shock. There have been scientific studies conducted in Japan showing that knocking on a shiitake log 10 times with a mallet will double the production of the fruiting. A couple weeks later, of course, there is a finite supply of energy within each log. The more you force fruit, the more you shock the logs to stimulate mushroom production, the less long they will last. So it's up to you. Case in point, every time I restack these logs from their kind of winter log cabin crib stack formation into their summer stack formation, it stimulates a fruiting of mushrooms no matter what the weather conditions are. The crib stack is more of a log cabin formation that allows the mushrooms to fruit, gives them plenty of room, and gives you room to reach in there and harvest your mushrooms. And the summer stack is more of just this pyramid pile that conserves moisture and makes it easy for me to water them. If it does get dry, I'll throw a 5-gallon bucket of water on these. But yes, every time I change the formation for the summer, it stimulates a fruiting. And I wasn't even expecting it this time. It's early August. It's been like 90 degrees. There's been no cold weather swings, and still they fruited. And this is a warm weather strain. This is Night Velvet from Field and Forest Products. I'll put a link below. A warm weather strain will fruit from 60 to 80 degrees. A wide ranging strain more like 50 to 70, and a cold weather strain will be more like 50 to 60. So you can buy several different strains and have mushrooms throughout the year, or if you live in a warmer or colder climate, you might want more of one or the other. but typically shiitakes fruit in the spring and fall when there is a weather shift, cold nights, and more warm, humid days, and some moisture, some rain. That's what normally stimulates them to fruit, but maybe you could just knock them around, skip the cold water bath, see if that works. Give it a few days. If you don't see any little pin mushrooms, then you could do your cold water bath. If you've never had a fresh shiitake right off the log, it is quite a beautiful sight and a delicious taste experience. It doesn't have any of that rubbery texture that a dried out shiitake would be, or some of those fresh ones at the store are kind of old and moldy and soggy and gross, but these are delicious and kind of light and airy, not that chewy, more comparable to like a cremini mushroom at the store than some of those chewy older shiitakes, although dried shiitakes have their uses and are also delicious. I usually try quite a number of these when I have a big flush. In addition to being delicious, these mushrooms are also nutritious. They contain many beneficial compounds that will boost your immune system, improve your circulatory system, help manage cholesterol. They have high quality dietary fiber that will improve your gut health. And because they're growing outside, they will be a good source of vitamin D. And they also have other beneficial vitamins and minerals. Most Americans don't get enough vitamin D in their diet, and many have high cholesterol. So eat your mushrooms. They're good for you. Will the shiitake mushroom escape into the wild and become naturalized like the invasive golden oyster mushroom?
No! God, please, no! No!
In my opinion, almost certainly. There's already been isolated incidents of this happening in Western Europe and Eastern North America, though the shiitake is a much more sensitive and delicate creature, I guess you could say. Has a short list of wood species that it likes to grow on, whereas the golden oyster has many hardwood species that it can grow on. And the shiitakes are more temperature sensitive, and their spores are not quite as viable as the golden oyster. So I do think they will escape, though it will be a slow progression and probably in isolated areas. Life always finds a way, and seeing as this mushroom is being cultivated outdoors all over the world, I think it will escape and slowly invade different parts of the world over the next few hundred years. I did ask North Spore in the comments of a YouTube video about this topic in general, and they gave kind of a blanket statement saying it's important to be aware of the invasive potential of mushrooms being grown outdoors, but in their opinion, none of their products are dangerous or have that invasive potential. But you know, give it a few hundred years and we'll see. We'll find out. Things can mutate and change and adapt, and based on that, I think that some of these mushrooms will escape into the wild and become naturalized. Let's start collecting these. And check it out over here. Got some nice fresh summer oysters. I did not grow these. I don't have to grow these because you can find oyster mushrooms almost every month of the year here in southern Indiana. And if I don't have any available to me in January, I've got some dehydrated in a Ziploc bag in my freezer. Very nice. Okay, not bad. Definitely looking forward to eating these. If you are thinking about growing your own shiitakes on logs, I definitely recommend it. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Mushroom Journeys. I'm Michael File. I'll see you next time.